I think this season of anime is probably one of the best ones we've had in a while. There are so many good shows out right now. You got Oshinoko season 3. I've been watching that. Jujutsu Kaisen season 3. I know I went off on a little rant about that a little while ago, talking about how much I disliked all the constant explanations of certain things, weapons, curse techniques. It was just so confusing. Other than that though, it's still a very solid show. Everyone's really liking it for all the stuff that's coming out with it right now. And even some other shows that aren't getting as much love are still doing really good. Stuff like Shiba Yugi, I went off on that a little while ago too, talking about how much I love the series. I thought the show's first episode was really solid. And after that, I went ahead and got the book, which is a really, really good read. So I would recommend going to pick that up if you haven't, because it is just wow, I really, really like it. Now, I try to keep up with as many of these shows as I can. I usually watch about maybe 10 or 15 shows every season because I like to wander around. I like to see what kind of shows are coming out, what kind of low budget stuff that people are making, which is incredible. There is a ton of hidden gems out there. And I kind of want to talk about one that's been on my mind recently because I watched it and it is actually really cool. Now, the show I'm talking about right now is Kaya Isn't Scary. It is a horror supernatural type of show. If you've ever seen the movie The Sixth Sense, you got Haley Joel Osment. He can see and talk to dead people. That's kind of like the thing that's going on here. But Kaya, who's the main character here, she's just like a little elementary school girl, and she sees all these ghosts that are just harming her preschool, and basically she can just one punch every single one of them because she's that fucking strong. It's like a more horror devoted Mob Psycho 100, if I could explain that. Because Mob Psycho is more like a whole story being built up. It was like a coming of age story. This one kind of just takes that out and just puts in all the scenes where they're fighting ghosts and just having little shenanigans here and there, showing like little horror stories, which I think is kind of cool. There are not many horror animes out there, which is kind of sad. I love the horror genre. I think it's a very underrated genre in anime. I think we should have more horror because there's just so many good ones. If they do it well, it does well. Not like fucking Spiral episode 2. That shit just flopped so hard. It had so many good things going for it in the first episode, and then they just dropped the ball. It was just so fucking bad. But I do like this show. I think it's a very refreshing take on the horror genre. Even though it's not that horrifying, there are some things that happens in the show that I'll just get into a little spoiler territory, nothing too major. But there's some pretty traumatic stuff that happens, especially like if you're experiencing it as a little kid, which is basically the whole premise of this show. For example, the more recent episode that came out, episode 4, in the beginning of the episode, you kind of see how there's a bunch of new toys that were just dropped off to the kindergarten, and you see some of the little kids there. They're starting to pick out the little toys when one of them discovers a creepy looking doll. Nothing too crazy, but it's very creepy nonetheless. And she decides to keep the doll. She starts playing with it, but then Kaya walks in and said that you shouldn't have that doll. It's a very bad thing, and they just kind of brush that aside. That's kind of the whole shtick with all of her classmates. They think she's very weird and crazy, even though she's going off on this whole protector kind of deal, because no one believes her. I think the only one who does is her teacher, and this other guy whose name is Mob, which I think is kind of funny, because after the end of Mob Psycho, you kind of wonder what happened to him. Even though it's not the same universe, I still think it is kind of funny. But after going off on that little tangent, she sees the kid with the doll, and then the doll starts kind of to take possession. So the girl is starting to look like the doll a little bit, and the doll is just absolutely fucking ragged. It is dirty, it's missing teeth, it is cut hair everywhere. So the little kid is starting to cut her own hair. She is ripping her own tooth out, which I thought was pretty fucking hardcore. But that's still like a crazy thing to animate or see, especially like in a kids area and stuff like that. So you have all the teachers there, they're kind of noticing stuff, but they really just don't pay attention. It's mainly just Kaya and her designated teacher that are just actually seeing these things play out. So after the doll starts kind of take control, Kaya steps in and she says like, this is why you shouldn't have done it. And she grabs the doll and just smacks it down on the ground, WWE style, pretty much just with one arm, and destroys it. And then possession's gone. Girl's back to normal. Nothing too bad, but she ended up saving the girl. And it's going to that little linear path right there. She starts off being ostracized by all her friends, when slowly but surely she's doing all these little tasks here and there individually for each person, and the kids are starting to warm up to her, so she's starting to get friends. But these episodes are divided into different stories. One is just like the story she's having in her own school life, and then the main plot point, which is like her and her home life, dealing with her mom, and all this other stuff that's going on right now that has just been revealed in the 4th episode. I won't go into any details there, but it's a pretty interesting story nonetheless. She's still like very strong, but she's trying to do stuff at home even though she's not strong enough to defeat what's coming in the future. So there's no real shortage of story there. You kind of get to see things through both parts in her own daily life and her home life, which I think is kind of cool. You get to mix in the little horror aspects here and there. Even though there's not much horror in there, I still think they do some horror elements very well. But it is still a very good watch, and I think a lot of people would really like it if they gave it a chance. Even the opening and ending songs were pretty freaking cool. I like those songs. I think you should check those out. But yeah, it's a solid show. I would definitely recommend go watching it out. I just want to talk about it because it's just so interesting, and I wanted to put it out there so people can go watch it. That's pretty much it for me. Other than that, thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll talk to you later. See ya.